Good afternoon and welcome to Cenegenics Carolina's webinar called Stop the Clock, How to Slow the Aging Process. If you're like I am, you accept the fact that you're getting older, but you want to fight it every step of the way. You really want to feel energized and youthful and productive as you move through the aging process. We know that Americans are living longer, but not necessarily healthier. In fact, when we look at population studies, we show that we have increased the length of life, but we've really made almost no progress in decreasing the length of disability at the end of life. According to the American Journal of Medicine in February of 2004, it is time to abandon disease as the focus of medical care. Medical care that is centered on the diagnosis and treatment of individual diseases is certainly out of date and at its worst is harmful. And that's what we're about here at Cenegenics Carolina. We're about prevention and helping you to be proactive in managing the aging process. Here's a pretty surprising statistic. It was published by the American Medical Association quite a few years ago that 7 out of the 10 leading causes of death are preventable. That means we have control over what takes us to an early grave. So this is very important to know. Can you relate to any of these things? Diminished libido, sexual dysfunction, perhaps erectile dysfunction in men, waning energy, carrying around more fat and less muscle, perhaps not getting the same bang for your buck from your workouts, cardiovascular concerns, perhaps you're on medication for high cholesterol levels. How about irritability or anxiety? Maybe not feel as focused as you were once. What about emotional upheavals, feeling like you have a little less control over your emotions and moods? In some cases, there can be frank depression that we associate with the aging process. And how about just not feeling quite as good about yourself, a lowered self-esteem? What about loss of bone? Have you been told that you're losing bone? What about stiffness, waking up in the morning and feeling like you're having a little more trouble getting out of bed? Poor immune system function. Are you getting more colds and flus than you did when you were younger? How about the quality of your skin? Are you noticing more wrinkling and perhaps some flabby skin you didn't have before? What about at work? Is it harder for you to get through the day's work and be productive all day long? What about generalized aches and pains? Sleep disturbances? Do you have trouble falling asleep, or do you wake up in the middle of the night, or perhaps when you wake up in the morning you're just not feeling rested? What about your sense of well-being? Are you feeling as good about yourself as you did 10, 15, 20 years ago? And how's your ability to handle the stress that's part of everyday life? What about your mental memory and your fog? Are you feeling clear and able to be sharp and have the same reaction time that you once did? Good health is absolutely not an accident. It takes your active participation. You can determine your physical and cognitive performance now and in the future. It's time to put yourself in the driver's seat. Most of us have a business plan, but very few of us have a proactive health plan. Let me show you some examples. This is a physician who was really struggling with 30% body fat, really overweight, certainly not looking good, and obviously not feeling as well as he did a few years ago. This is him now after really being on a program that's proactive, that gave him some control over how he looks and feels to be able to turn his physique and his health around. We're introducing the next generation of medicine, which is called age management medicine, and it's called a pro-aging program. In other words, we realize aging is a natural process, but it can be managed. It is not a disease. It's proactive and relies on intensive evaluation and established protocols and really patient education, letting you know what you can do to get a handle on the aging process. It's about synergy of all of these different pieces. It's about optimal nutrition, physical exercise, lifestyle, simple things like what kind of sleep you get at night, how many glasses of water you have every day, do you wear a seat belt, some important things about lifestyle, and then hormone modulation, the endocrine or the metabolic part of your overall chemistry. Keep in mind, there is no magic pill. Gosh, I wish there was, but it's about all these parts, and as you can see, a lot of these are about you and about what you do to affect a healthy aging program. This was one of the surprising things for me that I did not learn in medical school, and that is that food is medicine. Appropriate food intake, including supplementation, is really the foundation upon which optimal health and possible longevity rely. It's always been surprising to me how quickly we can affect energy changes and the way we look and feel by making some simple changes in the food. Remember, food is very quickly digested and hence very quickly absorbed from the body and goes to work quickly to affect different organ systems throughout the body. Food is like any other medicine. If it works that quickly, so why don't we measure what types of foods and the reaction that it causes in the body? Why don't we monitor that with blood work and by doing diagnostic testing? And then why don't we document the effects of this and individualize your nutritional program? These are very important things that most of us are not used to doing and certainly don't see that kind of follow-up and in-depth management in a conventional physician's office. Just a little bit of information to get started is that food is made up of macronutrients. Those would be protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Protein, we know, are the building blocks for repair. They're very important. They're the bricks and mortar for our building of muscle and tendons. They're also required for immune system function to help protect us against certain diseases. Antibodies, which protect us against viruses and bacteria, are made from protein building blocks. They also decrease the glycemic load, which we'll talk about in just a minute, but this is the amount of sugar or the body's response in the form of glucose and insulin that happens when we eat carbohydrates. And protein can help to regulate that response. What are proteins? Well, here are some examples: meat, fish, nuts, legumes, those are beans, and dairy. But it's important to think about it just for you. How much should you have, and what types are the right choices for you? Let's talk a little bit about carbohydrates. They're not all bad. We've gotten a little turned away from carbohydrates because of some diet fads that have been out here, and carbohydrates do yield sugar, and they can be converted to fat. But here's the important thing. They're really the main energy source for the body and the main source of fuel for the brain. So if you eat no carbohydrates, you're going to be a little sluggish. You're not going to function as well as you did as far as that sharpness and clarity. So they are important to add to your diet, and they provide the fiber in bulk to your diet. Here are some examples of carbohydrates: vegetables, fruits, bread, pasta, rice, sugar, alcohol, and legumes. Some of these are what we call good carbohydrates, and some of these are not so good. The important thing is, are you monitoring your body's response to these carbohydrates? It's very important. Let's look at fat. My philosophy is the fattening of America occurred when we eliminated fats and replaced it with sugar. Fats are very important. They benefit the body by ensuring cell and skin health. They aid in the body transporting fat-soluble vitamins that are extremely important, and they regulate the release of sugar. There are good fats and not so good. The good fats include the omega-9s and omega-3s. Omega-9s are things like olive oil, canola oil, avocado, almonds, cashews, and macadamia nuts. We generally recommend our patients have a half an avocado a day to help keep their cholesterol, their LDL under control. They also help with your skin and with wrinkling and the fine changes that happen in the skin as we eliminate fat from our diet. Omega-3s include fish, tuna, salmon, sardines, fish oil, flaxseed, and walnuts. The bad fats, or the not so good fats, include these that we should avoid: trans fats and hydrogenated oils, margarine, fried foods, palm oil, and shortening. And we need to limit our amount of saturated fats, particularly from animal fats and dairy. Corn oil and safflower oil, again, need to be limited. But again, ask yourself, is your doctor really paying attention to this, and are you monitoring the amount of fats you have of these varieties in your blood work? Certainly is important. As we said at the beginning, food is medicine. What about the glycemic index? Studies have shown this is very important for helping with weight control and prevention and treatment of diabetes. It's a measure of how much carbohydrate triggers a rise in circulating blood sugar. The higher the number, the greater the blood sugar response. A low glycemic index food causes a small rise, while a large glycemic index food will trigger a dramatic rise in blood sugar, as well as insulin. This is a graphic recommendation of a typical American diet. We start our day with a high glycemic meal. Let me give you an example of that. That would be one of the American-sized bagels, a glass of orange juice, and a cup of coffee. Well, it makes us feel good when we eat it. Makes our blood sugar surge. That's the blue line. So we feel better right after we eat it. And in response to that, our cell will put out insulin to help regulate our blood sugar. And so that rises as well. Well, as that goes up, it causes a fall in our blood sugar, and that's a normal physiologic change. Well, when that happens, what happens? You get tired, you lose that energy surge you had, and the next thing you do is you grab a snack, a candy bar, something that is also high glycemic. That, again, causes that glucose to rise, the insulin to go up as well. This is not good. This high insulin level that happens over time can cause accelerated atherosclerosis, glycation, and accelerated aging, and is generally bad for the body. High insulin, fat storage, accelerated atherosclerosis or hardening of the arteries, glycosylation of proteins, that speeds up the aging process and can also make it very difficult to lose weight and to maintain a steady energy level throughout the day. How does the patient feel when they're eating a high glycemic meals? Increased carbohydrate cravings, always wanting that sugar fix, inability to lose fat, swings in energy and mood, and being hungry quickly after eating. This is what we prefer you to do, is have a low glycemic meal. What's an example of that? Well, you could have a slice of grainy bread in the morning with some peanut butter or almond butter on it, perhaps a couple of egg whites, some berries. You can have your cup of coffee. That's a low glycemic start to your day. Your blood sugar doesn't get as high, your insulin doesn't get as high, and you maintain this nice low threshold throughout the day and a nice even energy level. Low insulin, you're in a fat burning mode. Reduced hardening of the arteries or atherosclerosis, and really decelerated aging. Just in general, when you're thinking about a meal, eat a small, well-balanced meal about every 4 hours. Include in your meal a lean protein source about the size of the palm of your hand and about the thickness of a deck of cards. Include at least 1 serving of a low glycemic carb, preferably vegetables or fruits, and include a small portion of good fats. What would that be? Again, a slice of avocado, maybe some olive oil, a handful of nuts with your meal, sprinkle some almonds on your salad. That is what I would call a well-balanced meal. What about sleep? Goodness, Americans are suffering from chronic sleep deprivation, and that accelerates the aging process. It is one of the quickest ways to age, is to not get a good night's sleep. Why? Why is that so important? That's when the tissues repair themselves from all the damage we've done during the day, whether you're working out and breaking down tissue or sitting at your desk or whatever you're doing, you are breaking down tissue and muscle all day long, and your body needs that time to repair. That's when we make hormones like growth hormone and testosterone. We make during the deepest level of sleep. So sleep is very important. We focus a lot on that here at Cenegenics Carolinas. We ask you a lot of questions about your sleep, and then we focus on really helping you to get a better night's sleep. Exercise. We all know we need to do it. We need to do it a lot. Maybe we're not so sure about how we do it and what's the best kind of exercise for us. We do know that the more body parts you work in a workout, the better result you get. So the greatest variety is important. And your intensity, of course, should vary based on your fitness level. It's not one size fits all. You need to figure out where are you, where do you want to be, what type of exercise works for you now and into the future. Overall intensity matters more than duration. I've seen people at the gym doing the same exercise over and over and over at relatively low intensity for long periods of time and really not seeing much benefit from that particular kind of workout. Here's the thing. Exercise is so important. I'm sure your doctor's told you you need to start exercising. But have they written you a prescription? Is your doctor an expert in exercise? Has your doctor ordered for you particularly what the exercises he or she wants you to do? Have you had your strength and your fitness actually evaluated? And is your progress being documented? This is very important, to document progress as you begin an exercise program. Let's talk a little bit more in depth about all the different pieces of an age management medical program. The signs and symptoms of aging can be delayed. and in some instances relieved or even reversed. This is accomplished partly by restoring optimal endocrine balance or optimal hormonal balance. This is through hormone restoration. Why would hormone deprivation make any sense? Why would that make sense to take away from our body the things that help us to maintain a healthy, youthful chemistry? If these are some of your goals, increase muscle mass, improve memory, enhance sex drive, less body fat, better skin tone, more energy, overall better quality of life, you need to look at your hormone levels. Let's take a look at just some right now, and there are many more that we would be evaluating and spending some time on during your evaluation here. But DHEA, a decline in DHEA begins in adolescence and continues through old age, and it's correlated with an increased risk of cardiovascular disease in men. It's also, when it's decreased, your immune system doesn't function as well. You have a poor sensitivity to insulin, and we know how important that is. And it affects all your other hormones because DHEA is really the mother hormone. From DHEA, about 11 other hormones are formed. So it's very important basic hormone that's in a pill form that we also measure throughout your evaluation and your course of treatment here at Cenegenics. Other studies have also shown benefits of bringing DHEA back up to youthful levels. It's helpful in diseases such as diabetes and lupus. It's helpful in heart disease, helpful in weight and obesity, and it's very important, again, to help us to respond to vaccination. So let's say you're getting a flu vaccine. Make sure your body will respond to that appropriately with a good immune response. Let's talk a bit about estrogen and progesterone in women. Hormone replacement therapy, it really began 45 years ago for women. Its risks were generally overstated in the press a few years ago, and we can talk at length about that here during your evaluation or initial consultation about how the press has really distorted the results of those studies in the media. But the most important thing is when you think about hormone replacement in men and women, shouldn't your levels be measured and shouldn't your doses be individualized? Well, of course they should, just like any other medication you'd be taking. Estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are all hormones that we supplement in some of our female patients, and the benefits certainly outweigh the risk in most patients. Here are some of the benefits. 50% reduction in heart disease in women, decreased risk of osteoporosis and fracture in men and women. Did you know that 50% of men and women, when they fracture their hip, break their hip, 50% will be dead within a year? That is very important, and that is a preventable disease in most cases. Improved cholesterol profile. We know that estrogen, for example, has a tremendous effect on the body's ability to make and process cholesterol. So as your estrogen begins to decline, your cholesterol begins to rise. Decreased risk of urinary incontinence and vaginal dryness. Very important to avoid urinary tract infections and to improve sexual performance and sexual enjoyment. Improved cognitive functioning. Many studies have shown the impact of those hormones on the ability to think quickly and process things in memory. Improved libido. Sex drive. We believe sex is an extremely important thing to be looking at in men and women, and as part of the aging process, it's very important for our sense of well-being and our connection with our partners. That all adds up to an improved quality of life. Click on the presentation and then hit the right there. Thank you. Testosterone is part of the male endocrine system, of course, and it does decline in men. It is called andropause, and its decline is not as abrupt as what happens in female hormones during menopause, but it's equally debilitating for men. Between the ages of 40 and 70, the average male loses nearly 2 inches in height, can lose 15% of their bone density, and get this, can lose between 10 and 20 pounds of muscle. Those are very important things, and they have a lot to do with how we look and how we feel and our activity levels and our exercise levels and our general sense of well-being and overall health. We know that testosterone enhances sex drive, it builds muscle, elevates mood, can prevent osteoporosis in men and women. Men get osteoporosis like women do. Improves memory, lowers cholesterol, and protect against heart disease. We know that men that are in that lowest quartile for testosterone have up to a 30% greater risk of a heart attack than men with optimal testosterone levels. Thyroid balance, very important for metabolism, energy, cholesterol, heart health, cognition, very, very important, and there's several thyroid hormones that we evaluate. If it's that important, shouldn't you be having your hormone levels checked yearly and replaced appropriately? We believe that that's very important for overall health and prevention of disease. What about growth hormone? Growth hormone is extremely important. It's a hormone that's made by the pituitary gland. It does decline with the aging process, and it does a lot of very good things. Optimal growth hormone levels reduce arterial plaque, increase heart muscle mass, strengthen the heartbeat, improve heart contractions, improve cardiac output, helps to decrease abdominal fat and improve metabolism, helps to build bone density. Those are all good things. Can help with energy and help with sleep as well. We can increase growth hormone by several methods. Diet. If you have something high in insulin or glucose right before bed, it can interfere with your growth hormone production. Sleep. 95% of your growth hormone is made during the very deep levels of sleep, so getting a good night's sleep, very important. Exercise, the type of exercise, the frequency, the intensity can help to determine your growth hormone levels. And then, of course, supplementation. Are you currently working with your doctor to optimize this important hormone? Wanted to show you one of our patients. This is one of our patients who's in his 50s. He was in pretty good shape when we started, but he really wanted to do better. He was doing a lot of the right things, but he wanted to take his overall health to the next level. This is him now. He's lost over 5% body fat. He just completed a 73-mile bike race. He's feeling great. He's really taken himself to the whole new level and really is asking things of his body that he didn't think were possible a few years ago. So thank you, Mr. De La Santa, for letting us use your information on our webinar today. I like to think about what we do sort of like a symphony orchestra, where the music will sound beautiful when all of the instruments are in tune. And it's about the synergy of these different points that I have talked about during this discussion: nutrition, exercise, lifestyle, and then hormone modulation therapy, or restoration of our hormone levels to the optimal level. One of the most powerful concepts in recent medical research has shown that we inherit genetic potential, but not necessarily genetic certainty. That is very important. We used to think, oh gosh, my dad had heart disease, my brother had diabetes, my aunt had breast cancer, I am bound to get one of those. Well, we know now that's not necessarily true, that in fact it's changes in lifestyle, diet, stress, and supplementation that can positively impact the genetically inherited aging software that was passed down by our forefathers. So it is not a death sentence. It's not an absolute. You have some control over whether or not you develop those diseases yourself.